I've got my little notes here. We had a great 2024 from Nikon with some much needed releases like the Nikon Z6 III and some that kind of got snuck in there like the 35 and 50mm f1.4. Now in the Nikon ecosystem, we have pretty much everything we need to do just about anything we could think of. And so today I want to talk about what I want to see from Nikon in 2025. Now in this little thing here, all of my thoughts and notes, I'm not going to consider whether these are like needs or wants or whether they're even a logical business move for Nikon. They could just be things that I think would be cool to have, but they may not even be realistic or possible. One, this is obvious, the 35mm f1.2. We waited forever with that thing on the roadmap, and we even got a little teaser in 2024, and then it went right back into obscurity. I'm not totally comfortable with Nikon's 35mm game right now because I'm not impressed with the 35-1.8s or the 35-1.4. So I'm not necessarily going to be buying it right off the bat like I was at one point in 2023 and 2022 and 2024 and all the way back to the first time I used the 50mm f1.2. I'm not going to just buy it on launch. I'm going to watch other people get their hands on it first and see what their feedback is. But I can't do that until it launches, and so I need that to launch. We had two releases in 2024 that were f1.4s, the 35 and the 50. I think the launch price of both of those lenses is a little bit off relative to their optics and build, but nonetheless, they aren't a bad proposition. Generally, faster apertures cost more, and it's actually a step up in optical quality. But there are for sure people out there that don't need the sharpest lens or the best color or the best contrast, etc., etc. And they really just would prefer to have a wider aperture, and that's the most important thing, not supreme output. It's an interesting idea, so I would like to see this continue to grow into like a full line of lenses. The next one that I would want to see in 2025 is an 85-1.4, followed by a 105-1.4, maybe even like a 28-1.4 or 24-1.4 or something like that. And all of those would need to be of the same kind of quality as the 35 and the 50. Now, on the note of the 105-1.4, I'd like to see an update of the Nikon 105mm f1.4e. That's that legendary lens that we had in F mount. And I want something of that quality. But in a perfect world, we might already have a 105-1.4 of lesser quality. So I'm thinking the only way to differentiate those two is to have like a primo 105, the Nikkor Z 105mm f1.2s. It doesn't have to be fast focusing like the 85-1.2s or the 135 Plena. It just needs to be like absolutely incredible quality. Now, I did make note that I am sure that it is going to be absolutely gigantic, and I'm sure it's going to be fat like the 85-1.2 and the 135 Plena, and it's probably going to be heavy, but I think it would be awesome to take that legend and bring it into the Z mount with a little extra pizzazz. And I don't think it doesn't have to be incredibly insanely priced. As long as Nikon doesn't ride on the legend of the f1.4e, they can price this normally. But at the same time, they may ride that legend in what, over $3,000 maybe? Who knows? Number 4, I would like to see a Z version of the 200mm f2G VR2. That lens is still very expensive, by the way, to this day, and I'm sure the Z mount version would be incredibly expensive and probably more expensive than the F mount version ever was. I'm not confident that we'll get it anytime soon because people are still actually buying the F mount version, and I think Nikon would probably want to milk that cow dry, especially when adapted. People are saying that that lens works better adapted to Z mount lenses than it ever did on F mount lenses. But anyway, I would be happy if it was an F2. That's totally fine. Anything more would be kind of too crazy of a shallow depth of field, but if you're really going to blow my mind, make it an f1.8 and everyone will be incredibly impressed, but not really able to afford it. We've done a lot of primes, so let's talk about a little zoom here. I'm very disappointed that Nikon let Canon beat them to that f2 mid-range zooms. I would settle for an f2 Trinity, even though they would be absolutely gigantic and heavy and super expensive. But now that Canon has beat Nikon to the f2, release a 24 to 70 f1.8s. I know it'll be even more giant and even more heavy and absolutely ridiculous, and nobody would be able to afford that, but I really don't care about any of that. I don't care if anybody can afford it. I care about Nikon making Canon and Sony be like, they got us there. Anyway, nobody would be able to afford it, but nobody can afford the Noct either, and that didn't stop Nikon from, putting that out. Number 6, I kind of want to see some Nikon brand native DX lenses. Just a few, right? There's just isn't anything there, and I kind of understand why. And I'm not trying to tell Nikon that I know more than them. I get why they're not really showing a whole lot of love to DX, but a few, something like a 35 f1.8 DX would be very nice for the DX users. And then like a wide zoom, like a 10 to 20 or something. Number 7, I am highly interested in a quick focusing, wider aperture that isn't too long and it isn't too heavy, but I will compromise on both of those things for a 16 millimeter prime, or like a 14 millimeter prime, but a 16 millimeter prime specifically because it will make my in the field YouTube content much easier than it is right now. I know Viltrox has one and I haven't sprung for it yet, but all reports suggest that it's a pretty awesome lens. Therefore, Viltrox is eating your lunch in that particular market of like wide primes. And we can't allow that to happen, Nikon. Put out something like that. At 14 or 16, I prefer 16. 14 is a little bit too wide, but a 16 millimeter f1.8 prime, please. Number 8, it might be time for a tilt shift lens from Nikon. I know it's niche, but I think it would be really cool, and there are a few people out there that really want them or need them. So let's get at least one of those going. And on the niche note, a fisheye. Since we mostly have everything that one could need right now, I think we're in the territory now where we can do like some of these kind of niche things or just something incredibly innovative. One final lens. It's one that it was on the roadmap initially, but Nikon changed their mind, and that was the Micro Nikkor 60mm f2.8. And so we ended up getting the 50mm f2.8, and it's fine. It's a totally fine lens, but I wanted a replacement for one of my favorite lenses of all time. So I want to see a Micro Nikkor 60mm f2.8 and S. I want it to be an S line. I want it to have all the good optical stuff in there. Oh, and also it would be really cool to like differentiate it a little bit if you make it kind of quick focusing. Macro lenses don't really need to be quick focusing. The 105 f2.8S isn't that fast, and the 50mm f2.8 non-S is not that fast. It would be cool if you did bring back that 60mm MC f2.8S with the good optical stuff and make it kind of quick focusing. Oh, and by the way, I would buy that on launch, right? Before anybody used it. If I saw that was coming, I would instantly set money aside to get it. I trust Nikon's abilities with 60mm macros, and so if it's an S-line, I want to specify that. I would buy it sight unseen if it's S-line. I don't need a non-S-line macro lens. Let's talk about cameras. This isn't going to be nearly as long, but there are some cameras that I think would be kind of cool. A Nikon Z7 III. And I know some folks say we don't need to continue that line at all. And I kind of agree, only as it relates to 45 megapixels, we don't really need that. We have plenty of those. But one camera line that is reserved for higher megapixels would be kind of cool for some photographers. Turning the Z7 series into that option would be another offering, differentiating it totally from all other cameras. Not a camera that fits into the professional backup camera or professional secondary camera, a camera that is just all on its own for a type of photographer. It doesn't need to be crazy on video specs, just a 60-ish megapixel camera that excels in the types of photography that benefit from that. I don't even actually imagine that it sells all that well, but to the folks that want it, they would really appreciate it. A Nikon Z500 or other pro APS-C camera. Now, I'm not like some people in the community that think this is 100% necessary. I really actually kind of don't. I also don't believe that 90% of the people that are demanding it would probably actually buy it. I think that you're trapped in megapixel land and forgot that the Z8, whenever you put it in crop mode, is 19 megapixels, and that is actually plenty enough for pretty much everything. You can actually do pretty large prints that are beautiful at like 20 megapixels. It's not that big of a deal. But nonetheless, I want that camera for selfish yet non-selfish reasons. Non-selfish reasons, like I don't need it, but I want you to have it. And selfish reasons, because I want people to stop losing their minds about not having it. People are literally fighting in the comments over that camera, which doesn't exist and like isn't even rumored. And meanwhile, you can get like a Z7 II for like $1,200 and take gorgeous pictures. Granted, it's not going to be like the wildlife stuff and the sports stuff you want to do with a Pro APS-C, but you can be doing some incredible landscapes and portraits for like $1,200 right now. And if you want to be doing birds and stuff like that, then you can do that with the Z50 II for like $900. That was a little bit of a rant, but anyway, I don't need it. I don't want it, but there are people out there that do, and I would like to see it. That way people can just have what they want. The last camera is, I've long said that one more retro mirrorless series would be a lot of fun. With the success of the ZF especially, I think there's actually grounds for it as well. A Nikon Z-mount mirrorless rangefinder style camera. It would be very cool if it was 45 megapixels, but honestly, a simple, slow camera would be very cool too. Like take the Z5 sensor and throw it into a metallic construction, not like the ZF-C. That feels plasticky. Something very quality feeling like the ZF, and you have a sensor in the Z5 that renders so incredibly well, especially in black and white, which is what I would want to like go out and shoot, right? I would want to go out and shoot black and white with this rangefinder style camera. Or if you just want to make it super simple, you just like take the ZF and put it in like a small rangefinder style camera. I'd be happy with that too. A little small EVF off to the side, you know? That'd be so cool. That'd be a lot of fun. Not only would it just be fun, but with the success of the ZF, I actually think it's like a viable business proposition as well. Like I think it would actually sell. Like we have kind of a groundwork of what these retro cameras are going to be doing. I think people would buy it. Finally, in 2025, I would like Nikon to fix the Nikon webcam utility app, which currently still doesn't work on Mac, and it literally killed my Friday night live streams. People have been asking, hey, you're going to be doing the live streams again? Well, if they'd fix that, because I don't want to put out like crummy quality, and if I'm going to use the webcam utility app, I have to do it on the laptop and rearrange and reroute wiring. It's not worth it. But anyway, that's what I want to see in 2025. I'm Z Wade, the Z Wade, and Z Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube, and Happy New Year.